Aisha, a young, intelligent black woman with a heart full of compassion, walked through the grand gates of billionaire Charles Whitmore's mansion. She had been hired as a temporary nanny for his 3-year-old twins, Maya and Ethan, while their parents were away for work. The mansion was massive, with high ceilings, marble floors, and walls that whispered secrets of power and wealth. From the very beginning, Charles Whitmore was skeptical. Aisha was kind, but he had hired dozens of nannies before, and none had lasted. "Watch closely," he muttered to his assistant. "I don't want anyone messing with my children." Aisha, however, carried herself with quiet confidence. She knew the responsibility she had taken on was enormous, but her love for children and innate intuition gave her courage. Within hours, she had already noticed little details about the twins, the way Maya liked her bedtime story read in a soft whisper, and how Ethan would calm down if she hummed a gentle tune. Unbeknownst to Aisha, Charles had installed hidden CCTV cameras all over the house. Every move she made would be scrutinized. He wasn't there because he didn't trust her. He was there to catch her in the slightest mistake. The first evening was calm. Aisha prepared dinner for the twins, bathed them, and put them to bed. But as soon as she stepped away, Charles leaned over the monitor in his private office, watching every second. "Let's see if she can survive tonight," he whispered with a smirk. Suddenly, a noise came from the twins' room. On the monitor, Aisha could be seen speaking softly to Maya and Ethan, who were tossing and turning. Then something incredible happened. She placed her hands over their little heads and started whispering words Charles couldn't hear. The twins, as if by magic, relaxed immediately, snuggling under the blankets and falling asleep peacefully. Charles froze, his hand hovering over the coffee cup. Something about the scene felt different, too tender, too extraordinary. Could she really have such an effect on his children? That night, as he watched Aisha leave the room quietly, Charles couldn't shake the image of her calming the twins. There was a power in her gentle actions, a protective energy he hadn't expected. But he told himself, "Tomorrow I'll catch her making a mistake." Little did he know, the story was about to take a shocking turn that would change everything he thought he knew about loyalty, love, and trust. If you think Aisha is just an ordinary nanny, wait until you see what happens next. Hit like, share, and subscribe to follow the full story. The next morning, Charles Whitmore woke up with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. He couldn't get Aisha's image out of his mind, the way she had calmed the twins, as if she had a special connection with them. "It's just luck," he muttered to himself while sipping his coffee, but deep down, he knew it was more than that. Charles had built his empire on control and precision. Everything in his life, from his board meetings to his children's schedule, was meticulously planned, but Aisha seemed to defy that control in a way that unsettled him. He spent the morning reviewing the CCTV footage again, pausing on every movement she made, every smile, every gentle touch, every whispered word to the twins. It all seemed intentional. Determined to test her, Charles decided to set up a situation he thought would reveal her weaknesses. He instructed his assistant, "Leave Maya and Ethan alone in the playroom and watch. Let's see how she handles them." Aisha, unaware of the test, went about her morning routine with calm efficiency. She prepared breakfast, ensured the twins were dressed, and sat them at the table. Then she noticed something strange. Their favorite puzzle pieces were missing, hidden under the couch cushions. Instead of panicking or showing frustration, she smiled warmly. "No worries, my loves," she said, retrieving the missing pieces and turning it into a fun game. The twins laughed and clapped, fully engaged, completely ignoring the small chaos Charles had planned. Watching from his office, Charles felt a growing sense of unease. How could she remain so composed under pressure? He leaned closer to the monitor and noticed something that made him pause, a small charm bracelet on her wrist, glowing slightly in the morning sunlight. He didn't know why, but something about it seemed important. Later that afternoon, Charles tried to provoke her further. He left the twins' toys in disarray and then made a loud commotion in the hallway, hoping to startle her. But Aisha didn't flinch. Instead, she calmly spoke to the twins. "Everything is okay. Let's tidy up together." Within minutes, the playroom was spotless and the twins were smiling, completely at ease. Charles rubbed his eyes. He had expected mistakes, frustration, or even tears, but there was nothing. Aisha moved through the house like a force of nature, protective yet nurturing, strong yet gentle, and with every passing hour he felt his skepticism turning into something he couldn't name. That night, Charles couldn't sleep. He kept imagining Aisha walking through the halls, whispering to his children, her presence radiating warmth and safety. But there was one question he couldn't shake. Who was this woman, and how did she have such power over his twins? Little did he know, the truth was far more shocking than he could ever imagine, and what Aisha would do next would leave him frozen in disbelief. The next twist will shock you. Don't miss the next. Hit like, share, and subscribe to follow this incredible story. That night, the mansion was silent. The twins' laughter from the afternoon seemed like a distant memory, replaced by the eerie quiet that only a huge, empty house could have. Charles Whitmore sat in his office, eyes glued to the CCTV monitors, determined to catch Aisha in some mistake. But hours passed, and she moved through the mansion like a shadow, calm and flawless. Around midnight, a soft sound from the twins' room made him sit up. On the monitor, he saw Aisha kneeling beside Maya and Ethan, her hands resting gently on their tiny shoulders. At first, Charles thought she was just checking if they were asleep, but then he noticed something that made him freeze. Aisha whispered words that seemed almost like a chant. The twins, who had been restless moments ago, now closed their eyes and sighed deeply, slipping into a peaceful sleep as if lulled by magic. Charles's hand trembled as he reached for his coffee. He had seen many things in his life, but nothing like this. He leaned closer, watching in disbelief. Then, unexpectedly, Aisha placed her hands over a small wooden chest in the corner of the room. A soft glow radiated from the chest for a moment, reflecting on her bracelet, the same charm that had caught his attention earlier. The twins stirred slightly, then relaxed completely. Charles's breath caught in his throat. What was she doing? Unable to resist, he tapped the intercom. "Aisha? What are you doing in there?" His voice cracked slightly, betraying a rare sense of fear and curiosity. Aisha looked up, smiling warmly. "Just helping the little ones sleep, Mr. Whitmore. Don't worry, everything's fine." "Fine," Charles whispered, his eyes glued to the screen. This isn't normal." She turned back to the twins, her hands hovering over the sleeping children. The glow faded, leaving the room in complete darkness. Yet Maya and Ethan remained perfectly still, breathing softly, untouched by nightmares or restlessness. Charles's hand clenched into fists. He had hired nannies before, but none could command such peace and obedience from his children. None. The next morning, Charles confronted Aisha indirectly. "I saw last night," he said carefully. "How do you—" Aisha's smile remained serene. "It's nothing magical, Mr. Whitmore. I just know how to care for children. They respond to love, patience, and trust." Charles didn't believe her, not fully. He had built his fortune on logic, numbers, and control. Nothing emotional, nothing gentle had ever mattered. Until now, he began to feel a strange mixture of admiration and fear. What if her abilities went beyond just soothing children? What if she could see into more than he imagined? He resolved to watch her more closely, convinced that at any moment she would slip, and he would finally have proof to justify firing her. But deep down, he feared the truth. Aisha wasn't just any nanny. She was extraordinary. And what she would do next would leave him completely frozen, questioning everything he thought he knew about control, loyalty, and family. You won't believe what happens next. Aisha's next move will shock you. Hit like, share, and subscribe now to catch more of this unbelievable story. The following morning, Charles Whitmore couldn't shake the events of the previous night. Every detail replayed in his mind. The glow, the charm bracelet, the way the twins had instantly calmed under Aisha's hands. He paced through the mansion, restless and unsettled. He had always been in control, but now, for the first time, he felt powerless. Determined to uncover the truth, Charles decided to investigate the charm bracelet on Aisha's wrist. He pretended to be casual, walking past her while she fed the twins breakfast. "That's an interesting bracelet," he said. "Where did you get it?" Aisha looked up with her calm, warm smile. "It was a gift from my grandmother," she said softly. "It helps me remember to stay patient and loving. That's all, Mr. Whitmore." Charles frowned. He didn't believe it. Something about the bracelet seemed unusual. He ordered his assistant to research everything about Aisha, her background, her family, even old records he thought might reveal secrets, but nothing alarming came up. She had no criminal record, no history of child abuse, nothing that would justify firing her. Meanwhile, the twins' behavior continued to amaze him. Maya and Ethan, who had been difficult with previous nannies, were now thriving. They laughed, shared, and listened to Aisha with complete trust. Even Charles's own daughter from a previous marriage couldn't help but smile whenever Aisha was near. One afternoon, while reviewing the CCTV footage again, Charles noticed something he hadn't seen before. Aisha was in the twins' room, speaking softly, and the camera captured a faint shimmer of light surrounding her hands, almost like an aura. He rewound and watched multiple times, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. "Impossible," he muttered, but deep down a growing dread gripped him. Aisha wasn't just a nanny, she was something else, something beyond explanation. That evening he confronted her directly. "Aisha, I've been watching you. What exactly are you doing with my children? Why do they listen to you in ways no one else can?" Aisha's expression didn't change. She knelt down to the twins, gently tucking them into bed. "Charles, all I do is care for them with love and patience. They feel safe because I make them feel safe. That's all anyone can do." But Charles wasn't convinced. He left her room that night, mind racing. If what he had seen was real, then Aisha wasn't just a nanny. She was someone with extraordinary abilities, and if she had the power to influence his children so completely, what else could she do? He knew he had to make a decision soon. Fire her and risk losing the one person who could calm his twins, or trust her and accept that his world might never be the same. Little did Charles know, the real test was coming, and it would happen sooner than he expected. Aisha's next action would leave him frozen, questioning everything about his life, his wealth, and the family he thought he controlled. You won't believe what Aisha does next. Hit like, share, and subscribe to follow next of this shocking story. The following week, Charles Whitmore could barely focus on anything except Aisha and the twins. Every move she made was under his watchful eye. He tried to rationalize it. She was just a gifted nanny, nothing more. But the more he watched, the more he realized that what he was seeing couldn't be explained by ordinary skill or patience. One evening, Charles decided to test her in a way he thought she couldn't anticipate. He called the twins to his study and asked them to perform a difficult task, something only a grown-up could normally manage, reciting a complicated rhyme that they had never practiced. "Do it now," he instructed, smirking confidently. "Let's see if your nanny really helped you or if it's all luck." Maya and Ethan looked at each other nervously, their little brows furrowed in concentration, and Charles was sure they would fail. But then Aisha appeared at the doorway, smiling calmly. "Take your time, loves, I'll be right here." Almost as if the words flowed from her, the twins began to recite the rhyme perfectly, line by line, without hesitation. Charles's jaw dropped. He rewound the footage on his hidden CCTV and watched again. There was no trick, no prompting, Nothing. Aisha had merely been there, and somehow the children had learned. Shocked, Charles confronted her that night. How is this possible? I've watched them and they weren't ready. This shouldn't happen. Aisha looked him in the eye, calm and steady. Mr. Whitmore, all children learn when they feel safe, loved, and understood. That's all it takes. Charles couldn't deny the truth. No one had ever had this effect on his children. No one. His skepticism began to crumble, replaced with a mix of fear and awe. Then came the moment that truly changed everything. Late that night, Charles noticed movement on the monitors. His office lights flickered, and Aisha appeared in the hallway, holding a small, trembling Ethan. His tiny face was pale, and he seemed to have been having a nightmare. Before Charles could intervene, Aisha whispered softly in Ethan's ear, and the child instantly relaxed, curling into her arms. At that very moment, Charles realized he had been wrong about everything. He had prepared to fire her, to prove that he controlled his home, but she was the one truly in control. Charles sank into his chair, heart pounding. The power he thought he held, the money, the security, the surveillance cameras, meant nothing compared to the quiet strength of this woman who loved his children more than he ever could. From that night on, he saw her in a new light. Aisha wasn't just a nanny, she was a guardian, a protector, and someone whose influence could not be measured in dollars or power. Little did Charles know, the real test was yet to come, and it would not just challenge him, but threaten to reveal a secret that would change his family forever. You won't believe what happens to Charles next. Hit like, share, and subscribe to watch this incredible story unfold. The following week, Charles Whitmore couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was unfolding under his roof. Every night, he watched Aisha care for Maya and Ethan with a precision and warmth that defied logic. It wasn't just the children's behavior that amazed him, it was the way she seemed to anticipate their needs before they even spoke. Determined to understand the extent of her abilities, Charles decided to create a challenge he thought would finally expose her. He arranged for the twins to be left alone in the playroom with a series of complicated tasks, puzzles, and distractions, an impossible scenario for any ordinary caretaker. Then he hid, ready to watch and catch her failing. But when Aisha entered the room, her calm smile never wavered. She knelt beside the twins and began speaking softly, her hands gently guiding them through the puzzles. What Charles saw next left him stunned. The twins worked together, solving each puzzle with laughter and excitement, while Aisha's hands hovered near them, subtly guiding and comforting. From the security monitor, Charles noticed something unbelievable. A faint shimmer surrounded her hands as she moved. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he was imagining it, but the twins' joy and ease told a story that no ordinary explanation could justify. Then came the moment that truly froze him. One of the twins reached for a dangerous object, a small glass figurine perched on the edge of a shelf. In a flash, Aisha's hand moved, not touching the child, but intercepting the object in midair. The figurine stopped inches from the floor, as if invisible strings had guided it safely away. Maya and Ethan barely noticed, engrossed in their game. Charles's hands tightened on the desk. He had built his empire on control and precision, yet here was someone who operated on an entirely different level of power. And it wasn't about wealth or influence, it was about care, instinct, and something extraordinary. That night, Charles confronted her. "Aisha, what are you? How are you doing this?" His voice was a mixture of awe, fear, and frustration. Aisha smiled gently, kneeling beside the twins as they drifted off to sleep. "I'm just someone who loves children, Mr. Whitmore. I protect them, guide them, and keep them safe. That's all a parent or a caregiver should do." Charles shook his head. He wanted to fire her. He wanted to prove he was in control, but deep inside he knew it was impossible. Aisha had earned a place not just in the home, but in his heart, as the guardian of the children he loved more than anything. By the time the night ended, Charles had made a silent decision. No CCTV, no money, no authority could replace what Aisha brought into his children's lives. She was beyond anyone's judgment or control. And little did he know, the events of the coming week would reveal her true intentions, ones that would shock him, freeze him, and make him realize that life would never be the same again. The next twist will leave you speechless. Hit like, share, and subscribe to watch this unbelievable story. The mansion was quiet, but Charles Whitmore's mind was anything but. He had spent weeks observing Aisha, attempting to understand her. Each night, she performed small miracles, soothing the twins, anticipating their needs, even preventing accidents before they happened. Charles's skepticism had long faded. What remained was a mixture of awe and unease. One evening, he returned home unexpectedly, wanting to see her in action firsthand. As he crept up the stairs, he noticed the twins' bedroom door slightly ajar. Inside, Aisha knelt between Maya and Ethan, whispering softly. Charles froze, noticing the shimmer of light around her hands once again. Then he saw something that made him drop to his knees. Aisha gently held the twins' hands and murmured words he couldn't hear. Slowly, the children's eyes began to glow faintly, not unnaturally, but in a way that was undeniably otherworldly. They laughed softly, completely at peace, as if all their fears had been erased. Charles felt a chill run down his spine. He had prepared to fire her, to expose her tricks, but there were no tricks. There was only Aisha, standing between him and a reality he had never imagined possible. Finally, Aisha looked up and caught his gaze. Instead of fear, her eyes were calm, warm, and full of understanding. "Charles," she said softly, "I've never wanted anything from your family except to protect these children. They're safe because I care for them, deeply." Charles's voice trembled. Care or something more? Aisha knelt and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "I don't do this for power, wealth, or recognition. I do it because it's my gift. And your twins, they trust me. I've seen the path ahead for them, and I cannot allow harm to touch them." It was in that moment that Charles realized the truth. Aisha wasn't just a nanny. She had a gift, an extraordinary ability to protect, heal, and guide. Everything he had thought about control, money, and authority meant nothing compared to her quiet strength and unwavering love for his children. His pride, his desire for control, even his doubt, it all crumbled. He felt both fear and gratitude in equal measure. Fear because he had underestimated her power, and gratitude because he had finally recognized the guardian his children had always needed. That night, Charles made a silent vow. No surveillance cameras, no tests, no doubt would ever stand between Aisha and the children again. She had earned their trust and his respect completely. But little did Charles know, this revelation was just the beginning. A choice was coming, one that would define the fate of his family and test the bond between a billionaire, his extraordinary nanny, and the children who had unknowingly changed everything about his life. You won't believe what happens in the shocking finale. Hit like, share, and subscribe to watch and witness the incredible conclusion of this story. The morning sun streamed through the grand windows of the Whitmore mansion, but Charles Whitmore couldn't enjoy its warmth. His mind was consumed by the events of the past weeks, Aisha's extraordinary care for Maya and Ethan, the unexplainable miracles he had witnessed, and the overwhelming realization that this woman held power far beyond his understanding. That day, a crisis struck. The twins were playing near the mansion's ornate fountain when Ethan slipped, toppling toward the edge. Charles froze, heart pounding, unable to reach him in time. But before he could react, Aisha was there. She scooped Ethan into her arms with impossible speed and grace, holding him close. His frightened cries vanished instantly as she whispered softly, and a faint glow surrounded her hands once again. Charles watched, his breath catching in his throat. He had spent years believing he controlled everything with wealth and surveillance, but here was proof of something far more powerful, a love and protection that no money could buy, no rules could command. Later that evening, Charles finally confronted Aisha in the quiet of the nursery. Maya and Ethan slept peacefully, oblivious to the tension in the room. "Aisha," he said, voice shaking, "I don't know how to thank you, or even how to understand what you've done." Aisha smiled, her eyes calm and unwavering. "Mr. Whitmore, I never asked for thanks. I only wanted to protect these children and ensure they feel safe and loved." Charles realized that all his tests, all his hidden cameras, and all his doubts had been unnecessary. Aisha's loyalty wasn't something that could be earned, it was innate, fueled by a gift he couldn't comprehend but could no longer deny. He knelt beside her, humbled. "I was ready to fire you, to judge you, because I couldn't see your true worth. I understand now. You're more than a nanny. You're a guardian, a miracle for my children, and someone I can trust with my life." Aisha's serene smile broadened slightly. "That's all I ever wanted, Charles, just to be here for them." From that day forward, Aisha's place in the Whitmore family was never questioned again. She became more than a nanny. She became a part of their lives, their protector, and the silent force that shaped the twins' childhood. Charles learned to step back, to trust, and to embrace the extraordinary presence in his home. The billionaire who had tried to control everything realized that some things, love, trust, and devotion, couldn't be commanded, only respected and cherished. And Aisha, with her unwavering care and quiet power, had forever changed not only the twins' lives, but Charles's heart as well. In the end, it wasn't money, surveillance, or authority that kept the family safe. It was love, patience, and the extraordinary courage of a woman who never sought reward, only the well-being of those she protected. This is the moment that changed everything. Don't miss any of our shocking stories. Hit like, share, and subscribe to stay tuned for more unbelievable tales.